Well, it is historic. It officially passed last night. It has been quite a journey, and buddy, it was on the BBC, New York Times, Washington Post. Reporters even standing in the state of Alabama. Of course, one reporter for CBS, not knowing that our governor is a female, looked into the camera and says, "Now it goes to the governor, and we'll see if he signs it." I'm like, well, bless her heart, she didn't do her background work. Governor of Alabama currently is a woman.
Yeah, and doesn't have a gender bender name, so obviously didn't know her name.
Yeah, not many men named Kay so far. But anyway, so here's what happened. It went through the House, and now the question was, would it go through the Alabama Senate with no amendments, meaning it will go now to the governor clean, and this is the most powerful abortion bill in the history of our country, and this is designed, and it has been intended from the beginning, to find its way to the Supreme Court, where we as a country will ask the question that we had to correct in the past dealing with our bigotry and racism, when we at one time in our history declared that African American people were non-persons. We had to correct that because it was immoral, and it was wicked, and it was evil. And now the people who have put together this bill says it's time for our country again, based on all the things that we now know through science, through sonograms and ultrasounds, that we know that when this child attaches to the uterine wall, that it is life. And so now this is going to go before the Supreme Court. If the governor signs it, it'll find its way to the Supreme Court, and then we as a country will once again decide on whether this is a person or not. And right now the bill has no exemptions. It will, other than the life of the mother, and this will, because that's still life versus life, a life decision. And what the folks of Alabama and the rest of the country needs to pray about is that the governor will sign it, because then we'll, now I must, Bubba, I've been talking about this, and because you've been seeing some things, and we certainly want God's will to be done. We certainly, no matter how it goes, where we stood on this, we'll answer for, no matter what governments do. But I'm getting, first of all, we need to make sure the governor of Alabama knows that this is what the people want. That her office needs to hear from us loud and clear. And I have confidence that she will sign it. But nothing is done till it's done. But when I look at the Supreme Court right now, I got to tell you something. I know we all fought hard for Kavanaugh, but I don't know if he's trying to be liked by the left right now, but some of his rulings lately, he's gone with the left.
And you can't count on Roberts either. He'll go AWOL on you on a biggie.
But we can't. That's another day. Today we need to concentrate on this bill being signed by the governor of Alabama. That's the next step. Everything else, and it was quite a little battle yesterday and it wasn't a battle that there was going to be an abortion bill passed. The Republicans rule in Alabama, Senate, and the House. However, there were some Republicans that wanted to add some amendments that would have killed the bill for it to do what it is intended to do, and that is to take on the question of personhood. And they fought, and they went back and forth, and finally, on the final vote, it passed 25 votes in favor, 6 against. So now it goes to the governor. So there's the update. And so all of you that have been following this, because this affects the whole country, it doesn't just affect Alabama.
And Rick, too, here's the thing. So many times in politics, and you see this with a lot going on now, there's people with hidden agendas, and they're trying to do this, trying to do that. One thing I like about this, it's been very open.
Yeah.
Everybody's been very clear about what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it. And, the Dred Scott case was historic. It was a miscarriage of justice. It went on for a while. Some people would even have said it's settled law. But we went back and changed it because it was wrong. It was evil, and it was wrong, and it had to be corrected. And the same thing with Roe v. Wade. We must correct that. It was a bad decision. It was misplaced, and it is not settled. It is bad law. It needs to be changed. Now, when they do away with that, the states will have the option then to go back and to set up guidelines and regulate this process, which is where I think it should have been all along anyway. Then we can debate what these amendments were going to be and all that. But we've got to get it out of the federal jurisdiction back to the states. Obviously, that's where it needs to be covered.
Right. Scripture is clear, and now science is clear. And that's the thing. Like I had some, and some of the debating. Can we not have a level-headed discussion about this? This is not, like I said, this is not. It's not the time to browbeat people. I mean, like myself, that at one time felt different about this. I actually was able to look at the facts that were presented to me biblically and scientifically, and I realized that my view on this in the past was wrong. So that's all this is everybody say, look, don't ever take something and lock it up, throw it away, and go, well, by golly, I'll never. Look, I got news for you. It's okay for you to, at some point in your life, see something one way, and then as you get older, wiser,
hopefully wiser,
and spiritually, you make a change in your life, and you go, you know what? I was on the wrong side of this, and I'm going to correct that before I'm dead or before the Lord returns. I would fall into that category, and and just because you once felt one way, that doesn't mean you don't have credibility to be part of trying to do it right this time. And certainly, we want to have compassion for those that may have made decisions that maybe they look back on and say, I didn't have all the information, I didn't fully understand it. But this thing of we don't need to be human beings on something so delicate to be behaving the way some of you are behaving on both sides. Mm-hmm. This is about us trying to be humane and for us to not be barbaric, because here was the problem. We started out in Roe v. Wade with the intentions of saying that people were saying the woman should have a right to terminate a pregnancy. Well, then look where we've landed. Look at the things we now have had a Virginia governor talking about what we're doing with the baby that we were trying to abort late term, but mistakenly was born. And then now we went from thinking that life did not start till birth. Now we're saying we don't even know if it starts at birth.
Rick, I think what he said.
So we just got carried away with it.
And paraphrasing is, we'll keep the baby comfortable till we decide what to do with it.
Right. That was exact words.
Yeah, y'all. We cannot, as a country, look at ourselves in a mirror and allow that to go on.
I don't know if you've heard the doctor find it who's talking to one of our committees about even second-term abortions, what that really means. And what really takes place, the Planned Parenthood videos, which, goodness, talk about the Dred Scott ruling. Look at the woman that started Planned Parenthood. Look at what her agenda was. Right. It was bigotry. And we keep using words like women's health to try to not talk about. If we're going to make a decision one way or the other, again, let's talk about what's really happening. And if you're a person that says, I think that a person has the right to kill another person that they don't want to deal with, then you be on that side. And then if you're somebody that says, I don't think anyone has the right to deny a person life, we were taking, with Dred Scott, talking about people who are already alive and saying we're going to deny them rights.
Right.
Now we're saying not only are we going to take certain people and deny them rights, we're going to not deny them life at all. And so that's what we're discussing. And just like, some guy already today, well, I'll tell you one thing, all you about, y'all need a woman's body. Hey, sir, with all due respect, and I'm not trying to be mean, this is not a woman's body. We've already crossed that bridge. It has its own DNA. It is not part of the woman's body. It's not like the other organs in her body.
It's not like a gallbladder or an appendix or something.
And all I'm saying to you, sir, respectfully, is let's come off all that, and now let's talk about everything factually. And then if factually you think that the person who's carrying the other person has more rights than the person who's being carried, then you can certainly make that argument. But let's not get off on all this other silly stuff and slogans and all these signs and all this. Let's sit down and have a level-headed, humane decision on whether this was a mistake, like the mistakes
honest and upfront.
The mistakes that we've made in the past. That's all this is about. But there's a governor in Alabama that has to sign this for it to go to the next place, and we need to be praying about that. And she needs to be hearing from those of us that want it to go to the next place, because she now has the pen. And she has to sign it for it to go to the next place. The rest of it's done.
Rick, I remember, too, growing up, when we, were learning history, and we learned about World War II, and we looked at Nazi Germany and what they were doing, and we knew there was some idea, but we had no idea till we actually got in there at the end of World War II to the degree of what the Nazis were trying to do to the Jews. And when you see those concentration camps and you see those stacks of bones and you see those skulls and you see those mass graves and the clothes and the metal they pulled from fillings and wedding rings, and it sends chills over your body that anybody who is a human could do that to somebody else on that level. And it's just mind-blowing. And you look at that in a historical context to what we are doing in the United States today, and there's no comparison. When you play the numbers game,
right,
we're so much worse than the Nazis were. I don't know how we can live with ourselves.
Well, and what we can say now with the images that we've seen, the doctors and what they've described, the scientists and what they have found, the things that we can clearly see on images, you don't even have to have a biblical worldview. The decisions that we make going forward, we can no longer say that we were not informed. Just like what you talked about. We couldn't say anymore we didn't know what was going on at these camps. Once you know, then you're held to a higher standard.
Rick and Bubba.
And I would say Cuomo, too. Cuomo didn't help any either.
The celebration in New York, was not, because now you've left people who are making tough decisions as human beings, and now they're partying about it like it's no big deal. And I think that turned a lot of people's stomachs, rightfully so. But you're 100% right, JD, and Bubba mentioned that too. I think the problem we may face down the road, but again, we got to get the governor to sign it today. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's handle that first. But Bubba and I were talking in his office before the show. The concern you get when you get now before judges is that they don't go by the letter of the law. They just bring their bias in there and judge on their bias. And I hope that doesn't happen. Christy in Alabama. Christy, go ahead. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, Christy.
I am a Christian. I am so happy this is passing. The one thing I'm on the wall about is I had a news flash yesterday about an 11-year-old little girl who was raped several times by a 26-year-old man, and I believe it was Ohio. How is this going to affect someone like that?
Well, first of all, is she pregnant?
Yes, she's pregnant.
Well,
yes.
When you look at this, and it will. Bubba mentioned one thing. Those kind of discussions will actually happen state by state after the ruling is up or down on personhood. So those things will be discussed. But I will tell you this. I realize when you hear that, and rightfully so, you think of things that are just horrible,
horrendous.
Yeah. However, we know when we look through our history that there are human beings that were the result of evil acts by other people. And that certainly doesn't make somebody a father just because they're able to impregnate somebody. And there have been incredible men whose wives have had this happen to them, and they raised that child as their own because the person, as the caller prior to you said, had no say on how they became a person. And that person was raised either raised by that family or given up to be adopted by another family. And those human beings, one of them, especially you saying you're a Christian, went on to become one of our most powerful evangelists, James Robinson. Mm-hmm. He was the result of his mother being raped, and his father and mother raised him up as their own. That doesn't mean it wasn't traumatic. It doesn't mean it wasn't difficult, and it doesn't mean that all women and men can do that. But the adoption option is always available. I mean, as difficult as it is, this is a conversation about personhood only right now.
Yeah.
And these other things can be discussed state by state after the decision is made. But I just want you to see both sides of it. And I know it's difficult, and I'm not saying it's not. And I know it would be difficult for anybody to have to make that decision, but I do want you to know there has been precedent on that particular situation as well. Let's go to Daniel out of Alabama. Daniel, welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing this morning?
We're great. Fantastic.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the lady just called in, was talking about, in case of a rape, what would happen in that situation. And, my wife and I, we have an abortion ministry. We stand out in front of the abortion clinic in Montgomery, and it's abortion day every Friday, and they kill anywhere from 15 to 40 babies a week in Montgomery. And we stand out there on abortion day. The women start lining up at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And, there's kind of a running, it's not really a joke, but it's something that we say that, there's two businesses that we see on a regular basis where you can't even get in the parking lot, that it's just the lines stretch around the block and down the street, and that's Chick-fil-A and the abortion clinic.
Well, the thing you got to think about is the sensitivity of the whole thing. The sad part is that we as the church have done such a poor job that there are women that get themselves in this situation and then they're not really thinking about it yet in a way that you would think about it if you had been redeemed by Jesus. The government ultimately is not going to be able to stop everybody from doing evil things or everybody doing uninformed things. The church should never depend on the government to do their job. However, when you're given a voice like we've been given right now, we all will be held accountable for getting to a situation where something could be done to eradicate most of it. And Bubba and I have talked about that before. In politics, there's give and take, but boy, the number of lives could be saved with any of this finishing up is incredible. But don't miss, there's a lot of young women that are lining up outside the door of that because somewhere along the way, somebody was given life-changing words in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and either these people rejected it or they never really have heard about it. And that part can't be neglected in all this. We'll be right back.
Rick and Bubba.